they're going for a fly. But
Fly?
yeah.
Nice.
Anyways, yes, we are ready. Thank you, Eli.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So, um, at my church camp, they would occasionally have like random speakers that were a couple times they had guys who were like already part of the like staff that would come in and like do a speech. Like there was one time a guy like told a story about like how he was a fuck boy and he got a girl pregnant and like the whole rigmarole and then it came to Jesus sort of thing. And so one time they were like oh we have like a mystery guest tonight, and people were like really excited and they really hyped it up. And so they announced it, and it was kind of like a traditional like church setup where you had the stage at the front and at the very back were like the doors that went out into the like lobby. And so they point to the back doors, and then this guy comes like essentially hobbling out. Like he had his he's kind of like limping, and he had his arms all contorted, and people are like what the hell's going on? And so he gets up there, and so the thing is okay. This story's gonna sound like really weird up until the end, so just bear with me for a little while here. But basically, the guy comes hobbling out, and they're like, "Oh, this is so and so. He's got a very special story to tell us." And so they give him the mic, and uh he's the guy's the guy's you know, and so like honestly, so the thing is like I was a kid, right? I was like 13, 14 years old, and so like at first I thought it was a joke, right? And so this guy starts talking about how like people treat him differently and like all this sort of stuff, and like how it's really difficult for him to make friends, and he gave his whole backstory, and it was a decently long backstory. It was he gave us like a whole rigmarole, and then he's like no, and then I found a friend in Jesus. And so like at this point I was I was still a little skeptical because I was like what's going on? Like I was really confused at the time, because I was like what like I said, I was a kid. I was immature. I was like, what is this? What is this guy doing on stage? I don't understand this at all. And I'm looking around, and there's like girls who are like really upset, and they're like crying, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is a really sad story. Like oh, this guy couldn't make friends, and now he finally found a friend in Jesus. Um, and then all of a sudden he just kind of like almost like almost like uncrumpling a paper, he just kind of stands up straight and like puts his arms down normal, and people are really confused. Then he goes, my actual name is blah blah blah. And and it was it was a bit. He was doing a bit. And
What?
yeah, no, that's the
What?
yeah.
Okay.
Like I don't, it wasn't like not necessarily like a bit as like a joke, but like that was like his, I don't like that's how he praised Jesus.
It's like a spiritual, uplifting sort of. It's supposed to make everyone excited about Jesus.
Dude, you weren't kidding when you said that if like at work you were like, yeah, if this happened at like a modern day church camp, everyone would look at that in really bad taste, and I absolutely agree.
Yeah, like like people would be standing up booing this guy, but like it was
Like,
completely
yeah, that
normal.
is not okay. That's what they would say.
Yeah, but the thing is like after at that point I was like what, like I was right, like what the fuck is going on here? I was so confused because I was like, how does this have anything to do with anything? And I feel like that's why they like wanted to like not tell anyone, because if anyone googled him they'd be like, oh yeah, he's the guy who does the mentally disabled bit, right? And so
Wait, he's known on Google. Do you remember his name at all?
no, I don't remember his name at all. It honestly
Dang
was so shocking to me at the time, because I was like, what's the point of that? Um, The thing is, the worst thing is that like after the fact, we would go to what I don't remember what they called it, but it was like I think they called it like the Pop Shack or something, Snack Shack. And so, like we would go there and talk about, the sermon and blah blah blah. And there was like there were girls who were like still like, "Oh, it's such an empowering thing." And I'm like, "How?" The guy was pretending to be disabled, for what? I didn't understand. It was so like shocking to me. And I just remember that today. Um
Dude, I
yeah.
want to find this guy so bad. I'm like violently Googling the most atrocious like thing of Christian speaker acting mentally disabled.
Yeah.
I want to find this guy. I want to know him because if you said that like they were afraid of you Googling him and finding him like by name,
Well, that's
then
just an
I'm
assumption.
oh, okay. Because I'm like thinking to myself, then there has to be like YouTube content of this, and I would honestly kill to see a video of something like that with all the confusion in the children's eyes.
I bet it got buried at this point because that was a good long time ago at this point.
What year can you estimate?
Pre 2014 for sure. Maybe even I guess like somewhere between 2010 and 2010 2012 ish. Maybe earlier. I'm not really sure because I stopped going to church camp in high school. I don't remember what year I stopped going. Um, but yeah. Honestly, I would be curious to figure out what he's doing now. If he's still like doing that bit, or if he like retired it shortly after, or like pretty recently. I'd be curious to know. But yeah, I just had that. I
Sorry,
just
David.
I had that flash memory today at work, and I was like, man, this is a like obviously it's offensive, but it's a really funny thought or funny memory for me because like I was like people were like looking down on me because I was like kind of like giggling to myself because I thought this guy was doing like a bit, and then
Dude,
it turns out I was
Was he an
right.
older gentleman, or like what age was he?
Huh?
What age was the speaker?
I mean, like I was, like late middle school, early high school, and he was probably in his like mid to late 20s at the
Okay,
time.
he was pretty young.
So I mean, he's probably like well into his 40s at this point. Well, maybe not well into his 40s, but late 30s, early 40s, something like that.
Dude, yeah, you're right. It has to be buried at this point.
Yeah, pretty tragic. I'm sure that I could if with enough crowdsourcing, I'm sure that we could find this guy. But like, I don't want him to be found because I don't want him to like get in trouble for like a thing that he thought was good at the time. Like he thought he was doing good. He's like, oh yeah, people are really gonna be touched by this story and come to Jesus. But yeah, that was the
Well, I
story.
mean, just imagine how difficult, and this is sarcasm, just imagine how difficult it would be to actually have somebody who might have some disability come in and talk about it. That honestly couldn't be that hard, you know. But
Yeah,
lo and behold, they had to get somebody to come in there, act like they had a disability, and then just
right.
say, "No, I was just messing with you guys. You all got pranked."
Well, it was like the thing is like after I got some glares from people and kind of started paying more attention. It was a really compelling story. I was like, wow, this is really well told by this guy with some sort of learning disability. But but yeah, no, it was all fake. It was fake. That's the reason why it was so compelling is because it was written by a normal dude.
No,
But yeah,
there's some people who have like I can't remember like a name or anything like that or a specific time in my life, but I feel like there are people with disabilities who do become public speakers and talk about like difficulties and whatnot, and they have a pretty well established story, and they have practiced their speech and what they want to convey in their talk.
yeah. Well, and
So like I know they exist out there.
yeah, and we have had things like that where someone got in a terrible. There was one guy who was he got in a terrible car wreck with his son, and he was like paralyzed from the legs down. Which I mean, that wasn't like a funny one or anything. That was like an actual speaker, and he's pretty good. but that's why I feel like it wasn't so far out of place, is because we had people who had been, disabled in one way or another, and then like, oh, that's the time when I came to Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you.
I feel like I've had speakers like that at my school because I went to a private high school, and we must have had some folks come and talk to us like that at some of our assemblies.
Yeah, yeah. So like it was so bizarre because it wasn't so far out of the realm of stuff that we had seen before, but it was so bizarre when he did the reveal, because like I was like genuinely shocked. There was girls like talking about like how it touched them, in their hearts, and they're like, oh, you know, like some people were like, well, it's not a real story, but like, they're like, well, it could have happened. Like it's a compelling story
I mean,
that.
to be fair, it could have happened. Like it could
Right.
happen.
Yeah, yeah, and that, I mean, in that sense, absolutely. But fact of the matter is, the dude was pre- essentially pretending to be disabled for clout. You know, I'm sure he got paid
Yeah,
well for his gig there.
absolutely.
Crazy.
That's like it's like the I don't know if you've ever seen that meme video or whatever where that dude parks in a handicap spot, and then like police are watching him, and then he immediately notices the police watching him, and so he tries to act like super. I
Yeah,
don't know. Have you ever seen that video?
he gets out and starts limping. I think I've seen similar videos. I'm sure.
Okay, okay, good, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that, man.
but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. It's just the contrast of a short decade can make is insane. But yeah, that's my good old classics favorite speaker at church camp story.
Would that be like technically? Would that be like appropriating those who are disabled?
I
Like
don't.
if you were going to be politically correct?
Yeah, I mean, for more or less, yes. It's definitely. I think back then it was shocking. Now it's just offensive.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think he's appropriating anything, but it's kind of like probably shouldn't do that, bud. You know,
Right. Right.
like you can't even say the R word anymore without being canceled on like 13 different platforms.
That's true.
But